Welcome to the Scenario Podcast, your guide to mental health and well-being. Each episode, we uncover practical tools, discuss expert insights, and explore how supplements can transform your mental health journey. Get ready to learn, grow, and thrive with us.
All right, so we've got a ton of research here that you sent us about supplements and medication for mental health.
Yeah.
You've really been doing a deep dive into this topic.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
And it seems like you're trying to figure out what would be the best route for you.
That's right.
So we're here to kind of help make sense of all this information and hopefully uncover some things you might not have even considered.
Absolutely.
So, it really is kind of a maze out there, right?
It is. It's a real jungle.
The mental health world is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And there's this really interesting intersection between, traditional approaches with medication and this growing interest in holistic well-being and natural remedies.
Definitely.
And it seems like everyone is trying to figure out how to strike that balance between those two worlds. So you're really looking at the science behind both supplements and medication, their potential benefits, the downsides and how they fit into a broader mental health plan.
For sure. And I think one of the really interesting things is that you're specifically looking at how supplements could potentially complement or even provide alternatives to traditional medications.
Yeah.
You even included a study about how omega-3 fatty acids can impact the effectiveness of antidepressants. It's a really fascinating area of research.
Yeah, it's like this question of can taking certain supplements actually make my medication work better? Or could it help me maybe reduce my reliance on medication eventually?
Yeah.
Those are huge questions.
Absolutely huge questions. And you know what? There is no easy answer.
Right.
It really depends on the individual, their needs, the specific condition, even their genetic makeup.
Right.
But we can definitely dive into some of the research and shed some light on these complexities.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's start by talking about supplements because you've been reading a lot about how they can support mental health.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to things like mood, stress, and sleep. And one that keeps popping up is ashwagandha.
Yeah.
You're wondering how it compares to traditional anxiety medication.
Well, ashwagandha is really interesting because it's what's called an adaptogen.
Okay.
And adaptogens are fascinating because they basically help your body deal with stress, but not in a direct way.
Okay.
Like a suppressant, like some medications would do.
Got it.
They kind of modulate your stress response system.
So they're sort of helping your body become more resilient to stress instead of just masking the symptoms.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's some really compelling research to suggest that ashwagandha can be really helpful for anxiety.
Okay.
In fact, you flagged a study that found that ashwagandha extract significantly reduced anxiety levels in people with generalized anxiety disorder.
Wow.
Even compared to a placebo group.
That's pretty impressive.
It is.
So it sounds like it could be a really valuable tool, especially for people who are looking for a more natural approach to managing anxiety.
For sure. And what's really interesting is that some research suggests that it might actually work in a similar way to certain anxiety medications.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by modulating these things called GABA receptors in the brain.
Oh, wow.
So GABA is a neurotransmitter that has this calming effect.
Oh.
And some medications like benzodiazepines work by enhancing the effects of GABA.
So it's kind of like a natural version of a benzodiazepine.
Well, not exactly. It's important to remember that while it might influence GABA pathways, supplements aren't a direct replacement for medications.
Okay.
They work in a more gentle and holistic way.
Right.
And the effects might take a little bit of time to become really noticeable.
It's not like you just take it and poof, all your anxiety's gone.
Right.
It's more about incorporating it into a long-term plan for managing your mental health.
Absolutely.
And you were also looking at how ashwagandha might impact sleep.
Yeah.
Did you find any research about that?
Well, I know that you found a study that suggested that ashwagandha can actually improve sleep quality by promoting relaxation and reducing stress-induced insomnia.
Exactly.
Which makes sense if you think about its effects on cortisol. Right?
Yeah.
Cortisol is that stress hormone that tends to be high at night when we're stressed, and that makes it hard to sleep. So by lowering cortisol, ashwagandha might actually create a better environment for sleep.
Okay, so ashwagandha seems really promising for both anxiety and sleep.
Yeah.
But you were also curious about other supplements, like omega-3 fatty acids and how they play a role in mood and maybe even enhance the effects of antidepressants.
Yeah, and omega-3s are really fascinating because they're these essential fatty acids that our brains need to function properly.
Oh, yeah.
They play a role in everything from mood regulation to memory to cognitive function.
And we primarily get those through our diet, right?
Yeah.
Through things like fatty fish and walnuts and flax seeds.
Absolutely, but the problem is that a lot of people don't get enough omega-3s from their diet.
Okay.
And that could be contributing to these mood imbalances and other mental health issues.
So supplementing with omega-3s could potentially help address that and support our brain health.
That's the idea, and there's some pretty compelling research to suggest that omega-3s can be very helpful for depression.
Okay.
In fact, you sent over a study that found that people with major depressive disorder who were taking omega-3 supplements alongside their antidepressants experienced a much greater reduction in their symptoms than those who only took the antidepressants.
So in that case, the omega-3s weren't replacing the medication, they were kind of working with it.
Exactly. They were working synergistically with it to enhance its effectiveness.
That's fascinating. That brings up this really interesting point about this interplay between supplements and medication, that it doesn't always have to be either or.
Exactly.
Sometimes combining them could actually create a more synergistic effect and lead to better outcomes.
Definitely.
Which is really hopeful. But of course, every situation is unique.
For sure.
And it's really important to have these conversations with your healthcare provider to figure out what the right approach is for you.
Absolutely. And, as we delve deeper into this topic, it's important to acknowledge that some people experience more severe mental health symptoms that require a different level of intervention.
Right.
And that's often where medications come in with their more targeted approach.
Exactly. And it's not about one being better than the other. It's about understanding the nuances of each approach and making informed decisions that are right for you.
For sure.
So let's talk about medications. Then you specifically mentioned SSRIs, which are commonly prescribed for both depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
So you're wondering how they work and if there are any downsides to be aware of.
Well, SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are really interesting because they work by increasing the availability of serotonin in the brain.
Okay.
And serotonin is a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in mood regulation, sleep, and even appetite.
So they're basically boosting the level of serotonin, which can have a positive impact on mood and alleviate those feelings of sadness, anxiety, or overwhelm.
Exactly. And, in your research, you highlighted a study that looked at the different types of SSRIs and their varying levels of effectiveness and side effects.
Okay.
Some are better suited for certain individuals based on their needs and how their bodies metabolize the medication. It's not a one-size-fits-all.
It's like finding the right key for the right lock. Not every SSRI is going to work the same way for everyone.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to work closely with a healthcare provider who specializes in mental health.
Right.
They can help determine the appropriate medication, the dosage, and monitor for any potential side effects.
Okay, you mentioned side effects. What are some of the common side effects people might experience with SSRIs?
Well, it's important to remember that not everyone experiences side effects, and the severity can vary.
Right.
But some common ones might include things like nausea, headaches, changes in sleep patterns, or even decreased libido.
Okay, so those don't sound too pleasant, but I've also heard that some people experience more severe side effects or even withdrawal symptoms when they try to stop taking SSRIs.
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility of experiencing withdrawal symptoms when you discontinue SSRIs, especially if it's done abruptly.
Okay.
That's why it's so important to work with your doctor to gradually taper off the medication under their supervision.
Right.
As for more severe side effects, they're less common, but it's always important to be aware of the potential risks and discuss them with your healthcare provider.
So it sounds like it's all about weighing those potential benefits against the risks and trying to find that sweet spot where the medication is effectively managing the symptoms without causing too many unwanted side effects.
Absolutely. And, one of the questions that comes up a lot is how long do I need to stay on medication?
Right.
And again, there's no simple answer. It really depends on the individual, the severity of their symptoms, and how well they respond to treatment.
So some people might need to stay on medication long term, while others might be able to reduce their dosage or even eventually come off medication altogether.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that coming off medication doesn't mean you're cured. It just means that you've found other tools and strategies to manage your mental health.
Which brings us back to this really fascinating conversation about this interplay between supplements and medication. It seems like supplements can play a supporting role in a few different ways.
Yeah.
Some people might find that incorporating supplements helps manage certain side effects of the medication, or even makes the transition on or off medication a little bit smoother. And others might find that supplements help fill in nutritional gaps that could be contributing to their mental health challenges in the first place.
You're sure.
Like you mentioned before, a lot of people are deficient in omega-3s, and supplementing could potentially address that and have a positive impact on mood.
Right. And you included a study in your research that looked at the combined use of 5-HTP, which is a precursor to serotonin, and a low dose of an SSRI for people with treatment-resistant depression.
Wow.
It's really fascinating research because it suggests that combining certain supplements with medication could actually lead to better outcomes for some individuals.
So again, it's not always about choosing one or the other. Yeah. It's about exploring all those options and figuring out what combination works best for you.
And it's exciting to see how this field is evolving. There's a growing recognition that mental health is complex and multifaceted, and there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
I think people are becoming much more open to exploring different approaches and even integrating conventional therapies with complementary therapies.
Oh, sure.
And that includes lifestyle factors like diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, social connection. It's really about taking a holistic approach to well-being.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've talked about ashwagandha, omega-3s, 5-HTP, SSRIs. It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot.
And, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into your research, it's important to address some of those practical questions that come up when people are navigating the world of supplements and medications.
For sure.
Like, how do you know what's safe, what's effective? Where do you even begin?
Right. So let's tackle some of those common FAQs that you sent over.
Okay, let's do it. I'm sure our listeners have a ton of questions, too. So let's jump right into those frequently asked questions. One that you sent over is about the difference between supplements and medications. What are the key distinctions there, especially when it comes to things like regulation and oversight?
It's such a good question, and this is where understanding those different pathways is really important. So medications like those SSRIs we discussed, they go through really rigorous testing and clinical trials.
Okay.
They're regulated by the FDA, meaning there's a whole process to demonstrate safety and effectiveness for those specific conditions.
So with medication, you've got a lot more assurance that it's really been thoroughly vetted, and those claims about its effects are backed up by scientific evidence.
Exactly. Whereas supplements, they kind of fall under a different category. They're considered more like dietary aids, not treatments for diseases.
Okay.
So the regulations are a bit less stringent, which means there can be a wider range of quality out there.
Yeah, it really feels like the Wild West of wellness sometimes. There are so many supplements out there. It can be really hard to know which ones are actually worth your time and money.
Absolutely. And that leads into another question you had about choosing reputable brands and how to ensure quality.
Right, because it can feel so overwhelming.
It really can.
What are some things people should look for when they're shopping for supplements? Like, are there any red flags?
Transparency is key. Look for brands that are upfront about their ingredients, their sourcing, their manufacturing processes.
Okay.
Also, look for third-party testing certifications. Those indicate that the supplement has been independently verified for purity and potency.
So it's not just about the marketing or the fancy packaging. You really have to do your research.
You really do. And, don't be afraid to ask questions. Reach out to the company if you need more information about their products.
Okay.
If they're hesitant or their claims seem too good to be true, that might be a sign to be a little cautious.
Great advice. And then another one that comes up a lot is about dosage is always better when it comes to supplements.
That's a big misconception. Just because something's natural doesn't mean it's safe to take in unlimited quantities.
Right. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Exactly. And with supplements exceeding the recommended dosage can not only be ineffective, but it could be potentially harmful.
So it's really about finding that sweet spot. Are there any other risks or potential interactions with medication that people should be aware of?
That's why it's so important to have a conversation with your doctor or a qualified healthcare professional before starting any new supplement regimen, especially if you're already on medication.
Right.
Because certain supplements can interact with medications affecting their effectiveness or even causing adverse reactions.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle. You have to consider all the pieces and how they fit together to create that full picture of your health.
And it's a dynamic puzzle, right? Because our needs change over time.
Yeah.
So what worked for you a year ago might not be the best approach now. So it's about staying informed, listening to your body, and being really proactive about your well-being.
So we've covered a lot today. We explored those potential benefits and drawbacks of supplements and medications for mental health.
We did.
We dug into the research that you were curious about and tackled some common FAQs.
We did.
What I hope you take away from this deep dive is that there is no single right answer when it comes to mental health.
That's so important.
It's really about finding what works best for you, and it might involve a combination of different approaches.
Absolutely. It's about empowering yourself with knowledge, having those open conversations with your healthcare providers, and really being an active participant in your own mental health journey.
And you don't have to do it alone if you're feeling lost or overwhelmed or just not sure where to start. There are so many great resources out there.
There are.
And speaking of resources, if you are looking for more information on supplements, evidence-based recommendations, or even access to high-quality products, I highly recommend checking out Scenario.com.
That's a great resource.
They're doing amazing work in the mental health and wellness space, providing so much information and support.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for sending in your questions and for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And remember, mental wellness is within reach, and we're here to support you on your journey.
Thanks for tuning in to the Scenario podcast. Don't forget to visit Scenario.com for more expert tips, articles, and supplements designed to support your mental health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time, take care of yourself.